CHARAS basically started this space, and it's basically two gardens. From the Willow Tree over to Avenue C was the original space, and that was called the Plaza. There was a building here, and that was in like 1977. And it also went through to 8th Street over here, and then on the other side of this building behind you, there's another space that's a casita garden. So on 8th Street there was a metal foundry that was abandoned, and Gordon Matta-Clark, who was a deconstructivist artist, joined CHARAS, and he wanted, his work was basically deconstructing buildings and showing how they're put together, basically. He wanted to like start something that would be more permanent, because all of his installations until that point were eventually destroyed. He'd go into condemned buildings that were going to be demolished and take them apart. I think his most famous work was he chopped a house in half. He showed it. Anyway, he started this resource center in a foundry over there, and with his help, CHARAS then like built La Plaza into a park. He would go into the tenements to start taking them apart, use some of the building materials to build the benches and the amphitheater and things like that here. And CHARAS' goal with this space was to make a community center. So they built the amphitheater. That was the main thing, where they would have not only community meetings, but Tito Puente played there, and plays, and they started a program called the University of the Streets, taught English as a second language, and business initiatives, small business initiatives. They were ex-gang members. They wanted to harness the energy that was going into the negative parts of the gangs and do something positive and help take back their neighborhood. They got a grant from Plant a Lot, and that was what funded the trees, the 3 linden trees, the 3 willow trees that used to dominate the site. And all of their work caught the attention of Buckminster Fuller. He donated a geodesic dome, or 2 I think, and got a lot of national attention. They eventually toured the other cities and taught other people how to do what they were doing, and it all went along pretty well until like mid 80s. They were approached by the city. I guess they had been angling to try and get a building. There were a lot of abandoned buildings down here. And in fact, between them and Gordon Matta-Clark, they basically started the homesteading program down here, where people would come in and get, for a nominal fee, a tenement building that they could rebuild. Mm-hmm. And Gordon Matta-Clark, through his research center, would help youth learn how to do that. But anyway, they were offered a building on 9th Street in a school that now sits empty. I guess it's going to be a dorm. If they gave up this site. And so they kind of informally agreed with the city that they would not fight development here. And so eventually the neighborhood found out that, the Latinos basically left. Like I said, they fenced off those 2 sites that went over to 8th Street and made their own gardens, and this one went into disrepair, and there was like a rogue soup kitchen. People were living here, and a lot of anarchists and squatters from the homesteading movement were occupying it, I guess you would say. But it was out of control, drug use, crime. And Gordon Matta-Clark died very suddenly of a rare form of cancer, and so his program died with him. And the city moved forward to develop the site, but when the neighborhood found out that that's what was happening, they fought, and the legal battle went on for a number of years. It went all the way to federal court. And they won, but they won on a technicality, which, by the way, you should talk to Don Yorty about this. He knows this history a lot better than I do.
Okay.
I'll give you his information.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
But and the technicality was that Housing and Urban Development, who wanted to build senior housing here, had lied about the percentage of low-income housing and social services in this neighborhood, and that violated their own regulations. It was, at the time, it was called over-ghettoization. So they weren't technically allowed to put the program they wanted to put here. It was Casa Victoria senior housing. And so the judge ruled in the neighborhood's favor, and the development ended up happening a block away instead. And, so after that, it just basically kind of sat unused for, over about a decade until I moved here. And it wasn't I wasn't the catalyst that got it started, but in fact, the restoration project was basically what got me involved. But at that time, in between that time, the building that was sitting here burned down, and people on the block took over that lot, which was separate from La Plaza. There was a fence between them, and started a community garden, and that's what you see behind you. So when I got involved, they had shut the gates and kicked out the anarchists in the soup kitchen, and they were in the process of tearing down the fence between the two spaces. So the community garden took control of the plaza and tried to bring it back into a state of better use. But the anarchists were angry about that, so they tore down part of the fence on Avenue C and broke in and rioted and tried to take back La Plaza, but the police squelched the riot pretty quickly and kind of put an end to it. And that's when I moved. That happened like a month after I moved into the apartment, and so that's when I got involved. And then after that, like a few years into my involvement, a group, the Lower East Side Girls Club, wanted to build here again, so they put together a proposal and a design for a building, and they got site control from the community board and tried to build here, but we fought that, and they eventually found another site on Avenue D and built there. But then 10 years after the original illegal fight, HUD changed their regulations, and we were told by our lawyer who fought our first battle that they changed it because of the battle that we launched. Even though I say we, I wasn't part of it. So they didn't have to worry about over-ghettoization anymore. So they proposed the exact same building and got $10 million again to build it. They used the same floor plan that they had originally proposed. So again, we were fighting development, and at the same time, Giuliani had ramped up his pressure to develop gardens in the neighborhood and throughout the city. And Elliot Spitzer through Caroline Ratcliffe. Once again, you can get a better read on this from her, but she presented to Spitzer's office with some other people at the garden, Don Yorty being one of them, a video of our space and what we're about, and in particular he was really impressed with the fact that we did performances and other community things, so he basically filed an injunction against the city, I think it was against the city, developing any more spaces until a judge determined whether that was legal. And that went on for 2 years, and in 2002, he made a deal with Bloomberg after Giuliani left office to move the parks either into the parks, or the gardens into the Parks Department, or to be moved to a land trust to left as open space. And again, our lawyer, Larry Krutsky, said that Spitzer was so impressed with Carolyn's presentation that he went down to the map for us, that we were the one space, because it's such a big corner lot, that HUD really was hot to develop. and we were basically the deal killer, and eventually he negotiated and saved us. So, and from then on, basically, we've kind of just been going through the various changes in administration and how we manage it. And we dealt with the 2 hurricanes. One, like, I think it was a little tornado came and blew down our trees, and then the other was the major flood here in the 4 feet of water.